The galactic war had burned through 100 worlds before peace was even spoken of. Whole colonies had vanished in the fires of the Karath Empire, a race that believed only strength had the right to exist. They crushed weak civilizations without mercy, and many old species bowed their heads, hoping to survive by surrender. When the humans entered the stars, the galaxy laughed at them. They were young, loud, and fragile. But when war came, humanity refused to yield. On planets where other armies ran, human soldiers held the line. Even when outnumbered, they fought with courage that stunned their enemies. After the final battle at Lorne Prime, where humans lost half their fleet but forced the Karath to retreat, the galaxy began to whisper a new word: respect. Now, after years of conflict, the Galactic Council gathered again. A fragile peace was possible. To keep it, the great powers decided that alliances had to be made, not through war, but through bloodlines. That was how the proposal began. The Zathari Empire, known for its beauty, order, and emotionless culture, offered a royal marriage to seal their bond with humanity. The queen would give one of her daughters to a human leader, creating a symbol of unity for all races. It sounded noble, but everyone knew the truth. The Zathari queen had 6 daughters, and only one of them was chosen for this union: Princess Lyra, the least favored of them all. She was quiet, clumsy by Zathari standards, and her pale blue skin had a faint mark that made her imperfect in the eyes of her people. She was not cruel, not arrogant, only different. And in the Zathari court, difference was weakness. When the council's announcement reached the humans, there was silence in the great chamber of New Geneva. The human generals and diplomats looked at one another. The offer was clear: a marriage between a human and a Zathari princess. It was a political move, meant to tie Earth's growing power into the council's structure. But when they learned it was her, the least valued daughter, many took it as an insult. "She's a cast-off," one diplomat whispered. "They want us tied to a name, not a throne." Across the long table, Captain Aaron Vale sat quietly. He was not a politician. He was a soldier, tall, lean, and marked by the scars of old battles. He had fought on the front lines during the worst years of the war, leading small units in hopeless fights. He never smiled much anymore, and people said the war had burned something out of him. Now, sitting in a room full of powerful men, he felt out of place. The council head spoke. "Captain Vale, as a decorated officer, your presence honors us, but this matter is diplomatic. You do not have to stay." Aaron stood and looked around the room. "So the Zathari queen offers a daughter no one wants, and we act insulted. But tell me, do we measure worth by beauty or by loyalty?" The room went silent. He continued, "We've seen what the galaxy does when it forgets compassion. If no one else will take this bond, I will." The council erupted with murmurs. Some thought he was mocking them, others thought he was serious. But when Aaron looked up, his eyes showed no trace of humor. He repeated calmly, "If no one values her, maybe that's exactly why she's worth choosing." And so it was decided. Against advice and politics, Captain Aaron Vale volunteered to represent humanity in the new alliance. He would travel to the Zathari capital to meet Princess Lyra and formalize their union. The Zathari homeworld was nothing like Earth. It was a world of glass towers and glowing bridges, where the air shimmered with faint light from floating crystals. Every movement of the Zathari people was graceful, practiced, almost mechanical. They smiled rarely, spoke softly, and seemed to glide more than walk. When Aaron's ship descended through the silver clouds, he looked down and saw massive gardens shaped into spirals, a world designed for perfection. It was beautiful, but cold. At the landing platform, a group of Zathari nobles waited. They were tall and elegant, with long limbs and glowing eyes. They bowed slightly as he approached, though their faces were unreadable. "The Queen awaits you, Captain Vale," one of them said in a smooth voice. Inside the royal palace, light filtered through crystal walls, scattering across white marble floors. Aaron followed the servants through long halls filled with quiet music that sounded like whispers. At last he was led into a great chamber where the queen sat upon a high seat surrounded by her daughters. 5 of them were radiant, their skin flawless, their posture perfect. They looked like carved statues. But Aaron's gaze was drawn to the one standing slightly apart, Lyra. She did not meet his eyes. Her hands were clasped in front of her, and her silver hair fell over her shoulders in soft waves. She wore no crown, only a simple robe of pale blue fabric. The queen spoke first. "Human captain, the council has accepted our proposal. This union will symbolize the peace between our worlds." Aaron bowed slightly. "I accept, your majesty." The queen's eyes were cool and sharp. "You understand this is not a bond of affection, but duty." "I understand duty," he said. The queen nodded once and turned to Lyra. "You will represent our people, my daughter. Do not bring shame to your name." Lyra bowed, whispering, "Yes, mother." Her voice was gentle, almost too quiet to hear. The ceremony was brief, no warmth, no celebration. A formal exchange of vows, a seal from both worlds, and it was done. When it ended, the other daughters left first. Lyra lingered behind, unsure what to say. Aaron stepped closer, noticing how nervous she seemed. "I know this isn't what you wanted," he said softly. "I didn't expect it either." Lyra looked up at him for the first time. Her eyes were bright silver, full of quiet sadness. "You could have refused," she said. "Your people have stronger choices." Aaron smiled faintly. "Maybe, but sometimes the least expected choice changes everything." For the first time, Lyra blinked, surprised, not by his words, but by his tone. It was calm, without judgment. No one in her life had ever spoken to her that way. That night, Aaron was given quarters in the palace and Lyra returned to her own small chambers at the edge of the royal complex. From his window, Aaron could see her balcony below, where faint light glowed from a small workshop. She was working, on something, pieces of metal, wires, and a small energy crystal. Curious, he watched as she adjusted a panel, sparks flying for a moment before she covered it again. She was building something, though he could not tell what. In the days that followed, Aaron attended political meetings, where nobles discussed trade routes and technology exchanges. He listened, but his thoughts often drifted. Every evening he noticed Lyra in her garden workshop, quietly fixing small machines. One day he walked down to the lower gardens and found her surrounded by mechanical tools. She was repairing a floating drone, an old model humans had abandoned decades ago. "You like building things," Aaron said, stepping closer. Lyra startled, almost dropping the tool. "It's peaceful," she replied. "Machines don't judge mistakes. They only show you where you went wrong." He smiled. "That's a better lesson than most commanders teach." She looked at him uncertainly, but there was a faint curve at the edge of her lips, almost a smile. As days turned into weeks, their strange bond began to grow. They spoke more often, usually in short sentences. Aaron shared stories of human battles, not to boast, but to show how people could fight not out of pride but out of care for each other. Lyra listened quietly, sometimes asking small questions. One evening, she told him, "My people think emotion is weakness, but when I hear about humans, I think, maybe it is what keeps you strong." Aaron looked at her, then at the stars above. "Maybe it's both," he said. "It hurts, but it also saves us." At that moment, something changed between them. Not love yet, but understanding. Far away in the council's grand chamber, rumors spread. Some said the human captain was wasting his time on a useless match. Others whispered that he had fallen for her. Aaron ignored them. He had seen too many wars to care about gossip. He knew one truth. Sometimes the smallest light could outshine entire stars. And as the cold winds of the Zathari night passed over, the palace, that faint light began to glow between a forgotten princess and a tired soldier, the beginning of something that would one day shake the whole galaxy. The Zathari capital never slept. Its glowing towers shone through the night like frozen flames and its streets moved with silent grace. But for all its beauty, The palace felt like a cage to Captain Aaron Vale. The air was too clean, the people too polite, and every word felt weighed before it was spoken. To the Zathari, emotion was a flaw and silence was strength. Aaron often wondered how anyone could live that way without breaking inside. He saw how it affected Princess Lyra most of all. Though she was royalty, she was treated like an invisible shadow. The courtiers bowed to her out of duty but whispered behind her back. When she entered a room, voices dropped. Her sisters rarely spoke to her, and when they did, it was only to correct or remind her of her failures. Aaron noticed how she kept her eyes lowered during royal meetings, never interrupting even when her ideas were ignored. The council only saw her as a quiet daughter who filled an empty seat at the table. But Aaron saw more than that. During one long afternoon, the queen had summoned both of them for a ceremony where human and Zathari symbols were to be joined in a single crest. The royal artists worked for hours as the courtiers looked on. When one artist asked Lyra how the human half should be arranged, she quietly suggested a circle instead of a sharp edge. "It represents unity," she said softly. Her sister laughed lightly. "You mean indecision?" Aaron frowned. "No," he said calmly. "She means strength through connection. The circle protects itself." The room went still. A few nobles exchanged glances. Lyra's sister turned away without replying, but Lyra's hands tightened around the edge of her seat. For the first time, someone had defended her in front of the court. That evening, Lyra did not appear at dinner. Aaron guessed why. He found her later in her small garden workshop, sitting beside a pile of mechanical parts. A soft humming sound came from a half-finished floating drone in front of her. She looked up when she heard footsteps. "You should be at the banquet," she said. "I've had enough polished words for one day," Aaron replied. "Your workshop is quieter." Lyra looked at him uncertainly, then smiled a little. "You don't like them either?" "I don't understand them," he said honestly. "People who talk so much about peace but can't show simple kindness confuse me." She laughed softly, almost a whisper. "Then you will fit well here." Aaron sat beside her, watching as she adjusted a tiny crystal coil. The machine floated a few inches off the table, glowing faintly. "What is it?" he asked. "A companion drone," she said. "Old design. It was supposed to learn and adapt, but no one completed it. Why fix it? Because it reminds me of myself," she said with a small, sad smile. "Unfinished." Her words lingered in his mind long after he returned to his quarters. Days passed and news from the outer colonies arrived. The Karath Empire was rebuilding its fleets. The Galactic Council called for cooperation between races, and humans were asked to share their battle data with Zathari scientists. Aran attended the meetings as humanity's representative. He noticed that Lyra was never invited, even though her knowledge of Zathari technology was deeper than anyone's. During one meeting, an energy shield malfunctioned, causing a loud spark that startled the delegates. Engineers rushed to fix it, but none could find the error. Aaron quietly left the chamber and went to find Lyra. When he told her about the malfunction, her silver eyes brightened. "It's not the generator," she said. "It's the harmonic flow." He asked her to come help, but she hesitated. "They won't listen to me," she whispered. "They will if I ask them to." And so, moments later, the human captain walked into the council chamber with the quiet princess beside him. The engineers frowned in surprise. Aaron said firmly, "Let her try." Lyra approached the device, placed her slender hands on the panel, and closed her eyes for a moment. Then she adjusted a single crystal tube and reversed a charge pattern. The energy field stabilized instantly, shining with perfect balance. The room fell silent. One engineer whispered, "How did she—" Lyra stepped back and spoke softly. "You were forcing the energy to flow in straight lines. It needs to move in a curve. Energy prefers balance, not command." Aaron smiled. "Just like people." A few Zathari looked uncomfortable, but the lead scientist finally bowed to Lyra. "Your insight is valuable, Princess." For the first time, she was thanked publicly. It was a small moment, but Aaron could see how much it meant to her. That night, as they stood on a balcony overlooking the glowing city, Lyra spoke quietly. "You make them listen to me," she said. "I didn't," Aaron replied. "You made them listen by showing what you can do." "No," she said, shaking her head. "If you weren't there, they would have ignored me again." He turned to her. "Then we'll keep standing together." That's what an alliance means, doesn't it? She looked at him with a faint smile. You really believe in that word? Believe in it, he said. I've seen men die for it. On the battlefield, alliance isn't a speech. It's someone pulling you up when you fall. Lyra went quiet. Her eyes softened, and for a long moment she simply watched the city lights reflect on his armor. Weeks passed, and rumors began to spread among the nobles. Some said the human captain was strange and too direct, too emotional. Others whispered that the princess was changing under his influence, becoming less controlled, more open. They didn't know that in secret, Lyra had begun helping the human engineers build improved shields for border patrols. She worked long hours in her workshop, and Aaron often joined her, bringing old human tools and snacks that confused her. Once he handed her a wrapped energy bar. Try this, she stared at it. What is it? Food, he said, grinning. Humankind. Not pretty, but good. She bit a small piece and blinked in surprise. It's sweet. Not everything strong has to taste bitter, Aaron said. She laughed softly again. It was a sound he realized he wanted to hear more often. Their friendship deepened through small things, quiet conversations, late nights of shared work, the way she started leaving the palace doors open when she knew he was coming. But beyond those peaceful nights, danger was growing. The Karath Empire's ships had been seen near the Zathari borders again. Scouts disappeared without warning. The council began to argue about whether to prepare for war. The queen ordered all royal scientists to work on new shields. One night, Lyra showed Aaron a design she had made in secret, a hybrid defense system that mixed Zathari crystal technology with human pulse energy. I've been working on this for years, she said. But no one believed it would work. Aaron studied the model on her table. It looks solid. What's the problem? They said it's unstable. Too emotional. She smiled sadly at that word. Even machines are not allowed to feel in their view. Aaron looked at her work carefully. You know, on Earth we learned that some of the best inventions were made by people everyone laughed at first. Were they ever accepted? Eventually, he said. Sometimes too late, but always by those who were willing to see. Her eyes glimmered in the workshop light. Then maybe you are one of those who see. He didn't answer, but his silence said enough. The following day, the Queen invited all major commanders and scientists for a demonstration of the Empire's new shield systems. Every royal daughter was present, standing near their stations. Lyra's sisters displayed advanced Zathari armor designs, shining and flawless. When it was her turn, the Queen hesitated. Do you wish to present anything, Lyra? She asked coldly. Lyra looked down, afraid. She knew her hybrid system was not approved. But before she could answer, Aaron stepped forward. She does, he said calmly, and I request that she be allowed to show it, as a representative of our alliance. The Queen frowned but could not refuse in front of the human envoy. Lyra activated her model. At first, nothing happened. The nobles exchanged impatient looks. Then the small crystal sphere glowed, and a pulse of blue light expanded across the hall. When a test weapon fired at it, the energy rippled, and instead of blocking it, redirected it back safely into the ground. Gasps filled the chamber. It worked. The Queen stared in disbelief. How did you? It adapts, Lyra said softly. It doesn't just defend. It learns, Aaron smiled proudly beside her. The nobles murmured, some amazed, some annoyed that she had succeeded. When the demonstration ended, the Queen dismissed everyone, but called Lyra aside. Aaron waited outside, worried. When Lyra finally came out, she looked shaken. She said, I embarrassed the family, Lyra whispered. She said I acted out of emotion. Aaron sighed. Then let them be embarrassed. You did what none of them could. Lyra looked up, eyes bright with unshed tears. You don't understand. Here, emotion is not a gift. It is a flaw. He reached out, gently resting a hand on her shoulder. Then keep it. Because it's your flaw that makes you human enough for both of us. She looked at him silently for a long time. The faint hum of the palace lights surrounded them. In that quiet space, between the cold perfection of her world and the warm defiance of his, something invisible began to take root, something no council could order and no queen could forbid, the beginning of trust. The beginning of change. The Zathari capital was glowing in peace, but beneath that shining surface, whispers of danger grew stronger each day. Patrols along the outer border had stopped sending reports. Merchant ships vanished between stars. The name of the Karath Empire, the enemy everyone feared, began to appear again in messages full of silence and broken signals. Most of the council dismissed it as rumor. The Karath are broken, they said. Their fleets were crushed years ago. But Captain Aaron Vale had fought them before. He knew what kind of enemy they were. The Karath never surrendered. They only waited. One night, in the dim meeting hall of the Alliance headquarters, Aaron stood before the Council of Mixed Races. Maps glowed in the air, showing small red marks near the Zathari border. These ships didn't disappear, he said firmly. They were taken. The Karath are rebuilding in the dark. The Zathari generals exchanged glances. You humans always expect war, one said coldly. We believe peace can hold. Aaron looked around the room, frustration in his eyes. Peace doesn't survive when you close your eyes to danger. A quiet voice spoke from the back. Princess Lyra. She had been allowed to attend only because Aaron requested it. She stepped forward holding a crystal pad filled with data. The energy patterns near the missing routes match Karath plasma signatures, she said. Our sensors confirmed it twice. Some of the officers frowned. Those readings could be errors, one argued. They aren't, Lyra said softly. The same signatures appeared near Lorne Prime before the invasion 5 years ago. The hall went silent for a moment. Aaron watched her, calm, confident, no longer afraid to speak. He nodded in agreement. She's right, he said. We need to prepare before they strike again. The council finally agreed to form a joint defense task force, a small fleet combining Zathari and human ships. It was to test new strategies and the Alliance's cooperation. Aaron was chosen to lead it, and to everyone's surprise, Lyra was assigned as his science advisor. When the meeting ended, some nobles whispered angrily that the queen had been forced to allow her unwanted daughter on a military mission just because of human pressure, but the queen said nothing. She simply stared at her daughter and said, "Do not fail. Your mistakes will not only be yours." The next day, the small fleet prepared to depart. 10 ships in total, 5 human, 5 Zathari. The humans brought strong engines and powerful weapons. The Zathari ships carried sleek shields and graceful designs. Together, they looked like two halves of a broken idea trying to fit together. Lyra stood on the bridge of the main cruiser beside Aaron. She had never been this far from her homeworld before. Her hands trembled slightly as she looked at the starfield outside the viewport. You're nervous, Aaron said gently. She nodded. It's not fear of space. It's fear of being wrong. He smiled faintly. Then we're the same. Every soldier fears that. Lyra looked at him with surprise. But you've won battles. Winning doesn't erase fear, he said. It just teaches you how to move through it. Her expression softened, and for a brief moment, she forgot the heavy weight of her family's judgment. The fleet jumped to the border region known as Sector Dorel, a quiet zone of broken moons and drifting asteroids. The stars there seemed dimmer, and the silence of space felt thicker. As soon as they arrived, Lyra's instruments began to pick up strange readings. Energy spikes, she said. Same pattern as before. Aaron leaned over her shoulder. Can you trace them? She adjusted the scanner, and a faint red line appeared on the holographic map, moving slowly like a hidden heartbeat. It's a cloaked fleet, she whispered. Aaron's face hardened. Sound alert. Prepare shields. Within minutes, the Karath ships appeared from the darkness. Black, jagged vessels shaped like blades, their plasma engines glowing with crimson light. The first shots came fast, plasma bolts cutting through space like lightning. The Allied fleet scattered, returning fire. Aaron moved with calm precision. Human ships form the outer line. Zathari cruisers stay in shield formation. Lyra watched in awe as human and Zathari ships fought side by side, something the galaxy had never seen before. But soon the enemy fire grew heavier. The Zathari shields began to weaken, energy cracking under the continuous hits. Lyra looked at her readings. The shields can't hold. We need to redirect the energy flow. How? Aaron shouted over the alarms. She turned to him. With my design. The hybrid system, Aaron nodded instantly. Do it. Lyra ran to the control station and linked her device into the ship's power grid. She adjusted frequencies, merging human pulse energy with Zathari crystal harmonics. The system began to glow with a strange blue-white light. Peace never lasts long in the galaxy. For a few short months, the alliance between humans and Zathari brought calm. The hybrid defense system that Lyra had designed protected border worlds. Trade routes reopened. For the first time in decades, hope began to spread again. But hope is fragile, and in the shadow of peace, old fears started to grow once more. Rumors spread across the Galactic Council that humans were using the Alliance to control the Zathari throne. Some claimed Captain Aaron Vale was no longer a soldier but a silent conqueror, binding the Queen's family through marriage and politics. The Karath Empire, watching from afar, smiled in the dark. They needed no new war. They only needed division. Soon strange incidents began. Supply convoys vanished. Messages between planets were altered. A secret ship exploded near the Council's fleet base, and somehow evidence pointed to humans. Meetings turned bitter. Voices rose. The old fear of human boldness returned, and in the middle of it all stood Aran and Lyra, bound by duty but trapped by suspicion. One cold morning, the Queen called a private assembly. The great hall shimmered with pale light, and the council leaders appeared as holograms. Aaron stood beside Lyra, their faces calm, though inside both felt the tension pressing like weight. The Queen's voice was sharp. Reports claim that human agents have tampered with our security grid. Captain Vale, do you deny this? Aaron looked at her directly. I do. My people have done no such thing. We share technology. We do not corrupt it. A tall alien from the Zeren delegation stepped forward. You humans are clever with words. Perhaps too clever. Every time we trust you, chaos follows. Aaron kept his voice steady. Maybe chaos follows those who fear trust. Whispers filled the chamber. Lyra watched, silent but uneasy. She could feel how the air changed whenever humans were mentioned. The council no longer saw allies, they saw threats. Later, as the meeting ended, Aran and Lyra walked together down the quiet hall. She looked up at him and said softly, "They will not believe you." "They don't have to," he said. "They only need to see what's true." She nodded, but her eyes stayed sad. Truth is often invisible here. That night, Aaron was awakened by a faint sound in his chamber. He moved quickly, reaching for the plasma pistol beside his bed. The door opened slightly and a small silver drone entered, carrying a glowing message crystal. It projected Lyra's voice. "Meet me at the lower garden, urgent." Aaron put on his armor and hurried through the quiet halls. When he reached the garden, Lyra was waiting beside the fountain, her face pale. "They tried to arrest me," she whispered. "The Queen's guards. They said I leaked our defense codes to the humans." Aaron frowned deeply. "That's impossible." "Who gave that order?" "My mother herself." He clenched his fists. "They're being played. Someone wants to break the alliance." Lyra nodded. "I know who. The Karath have infiltrated the council. I found traces of their signal in the energy core data. They're controlling messages, rewriting evidence. Can you prove it?" She held up a small crystal. "I copied the hidden signal, but it's encrypted. I need time to decode it." Aaron looked around the garden. "Then we don't have much. Once they realize you know the truth, they'll come for both of us." As if answering his words, alarms blared through the palace. Red light filled the corridors. A voice shouted through the speakers. "Breach detected. Security lockdown initiated." Aaron grabbed Lyra's hand. "Run." They ran through the silent gardens as guards poured into the area. Energy blasts flashed behind them, striking the stone walls. Aaron's instincts took over, years of battle training guiding his movements. He pushed Lyra behind cover, returning fire with precision. The guards were not aiming to capture, they were aiming to kill. "This isn't just the Queen's order," Aaron said through gritted teeth. "Someone else gave the command." Lyra looked at him, fear and anger mixing in her silver eyes. "They want to erase the truth. Then we make sure the galaxy hears it first." They reached the lower hangar where small diplomatic ships were stored. Aaron sealed the door behind them and activated the launch system. Lyra quickly connected her crystal to the ship's console, her hands shaking. "If I can break the encryption, I can send proof to every council channel." Aaron looked through the window. "Then do it fast. We're running out of time." As the engines warmed, explosions echoed above them. The palace shields flickered. Someone had sabotaged them from inside. Moments later, a shockwave rocked the ground. Through the ship's camera feed, they saw it. A blast tearing through the council tower. Lyra gasped. "That's the main chamber." "My sisters." Aaron placed a hand on her shoulder. "I'm sorry, but we can't stop now." The tower collapsed in flames. The Galactic Council was gone in a single moment. They launched into the night sky as the capital city burned below. Lyra stared at the destruction with trembling hands. This was no accident, Aaron said. They want to frame humanity for this, her voice broke. So many lives. Even my family. Aaron took a deep breath. Lyra, listen. If we fall apart now, everything we fought for ends here. You have to finish decoding that crystal. She nodded, wiping her eyes. I will. Hours passed as their small ship drifted in the void, hidden in the debris field of a destroyed satellite. Aaron kept watch while Lyra worked at the console, her focus absolute. Finally, she whispered, Got it. The screen lit up with streams of alien symbols. It was a Karath command sequence, proof that the Empire had manipulated council systems and launched the bomb remotely. They framed us, Aaron said softly. They wanted every race to turn on us before they strike again. Lyra uploaded the data into the ship's transmitter. I'm sending this across every open channel. They can't hide it anymore. As the signal pulsed into the void, Aaron looked at her and said, You just made yourself the most wanted person in the galaxy. She smiled weakly. At least now they'll finally hear my voice. Hours later, the transmission spread across hundreds of worlds. The truth was undeniable. The Karath had infiltrated the Council, destroyed it, and tried to frame both humans and Zathari. But instead of uniting, the galaxy fell into chaos. Some refused to believe the evidence, claiming it was human trickery. Others demanded vengeance. Fleets mobilized. The Queen declared both Aaron and Lyra traitors. Now fugitives, they fled from world to world, surviving on hidden bases. But even in exile, they found allies. Human soldiers loyal to Aaron, Zathari engineers who had once respected Lyra's brilliance, and small colonies that remembered what they had done. Together, they formed a resistance. One night on the frozen moon of Arges, they sat by the faint blue fire of a generator. Aaron stared at the stars. We lost everything, he said quietly. Lyra shook her head. Not everything. We still have truth. And we have each other. He looked at her and smiled faintly. That's more than most armies ever had. She looked back, her eyes reflecting the light. Do you ever regret choosing me? He thought for a moment, then said softly, No. I regret only that I didn't see sooner how much strength can hide behind silence. Her lips curved in a small, sad smile. And I regret that it took war for me to find someone who believed in me. They sat together in silence, surrounded by the sound of the wind against the metal walls. Above them, the galaxy burned, but between them, a quiet fire of hope still lived. Days later, their small camp received a transmission. It was from a human admiral. Captain Vale, Princess Lyra, your message reached us. The Karath fleet has been sighted. They're gathering for a final assault. The council is gone. We stand alone. Aaron turned to Lyra. Then we stand together. She nodded, determination replacing grief. If this is the end, we'll make it count. Aaron smiled, gripping her shoulder. That's the human way. And so the fugitives prepared for the last war. Their alliance was no longer written in papers or promises, but in trust and courage. The galaxy had fallen apart, but amid the ruins, one soldier and one forgotten princess carried the hope of two worlds. In the darkness between the stars, their small ship moved toward the battlefield, not as symbols of politics, but as living proof that even when everything collapses, humanity still chooses to fight, to protect, and to believe. The galaxy would soon learn that no crown, no empire, and no fear could silence a single human heart, or the quiet voice of an alien princess who finally found her worth. The cold stars stretched across the black sky as Aaron Vale watched the small fleet gather. It was not much. A dozen human warships, a few damaged Zathari cruisers, and some old supply carriers turned into gunboats. But to the survivors scattered across the galaxy, it was hope. He stood on the bridge of his ship, resolute, staring at the holographic map. The Karath Empire's fleet was advancing, hundreds of warships moving in perfect formation. They were heading toward the human colony world Ilarion, the last free stronghold in the region. Lyra stood beside him, wearing light battle armor. Her silver eyes were calm, but Aaron could see the fear behind them. They outnumber us 20-1, she said quietly. He nodded. Numbers don't always win wars. Sometimes belief does. She looked at him and smiled softly. Then I hope your belief is strong enough for both of us. In the command room, the resistance leaders gathered. Old soldiers, alien engineers, and young recruits filled the space. Aaron stood in front of them, his voice steady. The Karath think we are broken. They think we will hide. But we are human, and Zathari. We've faced extinction before. We will face it again if we must, he pointed at the map. They will attack here. Our ships will hold them at the belt. Lyra will command the ground defenses on Ilarion. Her new energy field will protect the colony for as long as it holds. One of the officers asked, "And you, Captain?" Aaron replied calmly, "I'll be on the front line." Lyra turned to him sharply. "You'll be killed." "Maybe. But if I'm there, they'll see we are not running." The room went silent. Then slowly, one by one, the crew began to salute him. They knew what it meant to follow a leader who refused to give up even in the face of death. As the ships moved into position, Lyra worked in the planet's defense station, surrounded by glowing screens. Her new energy shield hummed around the city, a shimmering blue dome that pulsed like a heartbeat. She spoke into the communicator. "Aaron, the shield is online. You'll have cover for at least 4 hours." "Copy that," came his voice. 4 hours is more than enough. Outside the atmosphere, the Karath fleet appeared, massive, dark ships glowing with red energy. The void shook as they opened fire. The first wave of missiles streaked across space, but human and Zathari guns met them in a storm of light. Explosions filled the sky. "Shields at 70%, shouted one officer. Aaron gripped the controls. "Hold the line!" The enemy came closer. Massive Karath warships pushed forward, their cannons blazing. The Resolute took heavy hits, but Aaron refused to retreat. He sent a message to Lyra. "Keep the field steady. We'll buy you time." Her voice came back firm but shaking. "Just don't die before I finish the secondary core." He smiled despite the chaos. No promises. Hours passed like minutes. The battle became fire and light. Human ships broke apart, but new ones took their place. The Resistance fought like they had nothing left to lose. Because they didn't. Aaron's ship was hit again. Alarms screamed. The control panel sparked. "Captain, main engine is gone," yelled the technician. "Then reroute power to the cannons," Aaron said calmly. "We'll burn until the last shot." He fired at the lead Karath destroyer, blasting its engines apart. The massive ship exploded, sending debris spinning into the void. The crew cheered. Even in death, they were still fighting. Down on the planet, Lyra monitored the shield. Energy levels dropped faster than expected. The Karath bombardment was too strong. She worked faster, her hands flying over the console. "Come on, hold together," she whispered. Suddenly, the communication screen flickered. It was Aaron, blood on his forehead, but still standing. "Lyra, we're falling back. Their reinforcements just arrived. The shield is your last wall now." She looked at him with fear. "You can't hold them. You'll be destroyed," he smiled faintly. "If that's what it takes, then that's what humans do." Before she could reply, the signal cut. Outside, Aaron watched as half his fleet broke apart. The Karath commander appeared on the main screen, a tall, armored figure with cold, glowing eyes. "Human," it said. "You fight well. But you fight for a lost cause. Your world will burn." Aaron wiped blood from his face and said, "Maybe, but you'll never understand why we fight." He ended the transmission and gave the final order. "All ships focus fire on the enemy flagship." The Resolute charged forward, engines burning. Missiles struck its hull, tearing it apart, but still it moved. Aaron locked the main cannon on the Karath flagship and fired everything at once. The blast tore through the void, striking the enemy ship dead center. It exploded in a wave of white light, taking half the Karath fleet with it. The shockwave hit the Resolute. Systems died. The ship drifted in silence. Inside, Aaron fell against the console, weak but alive. He whispered to himself, "Not yet. I promised her I'd see the dawn." Down below, Lyra saw the explosion in the sky. For a moment, she thought it was the end. Then the sensors showed something strange. The Karath ships were retreating. She ran outside, looking up at the burning sky. Pieces of wreckage fell through the clouds like shooting stars. The shield flickered but stayed intact. The people of Ilarion came out of shelters, staring in silence. They had survived, but Lyra didn't smile. Her eyes searched the heavens. "Aaron," she whispered. Hours later, search drones moved through the debris field. Most ships were gone, but one small life signal remained, drifting near the ruins of the Resolute. Lyra took a shuttle and went herself. When she reached the wreck, she found him, barely conscious, floating near a broken hull piece, his armor cracked but still holding life. She pulled him inside, tears falling silently. "You foolish soldier," she said softly. "You said you'd wait for the dawn." His eyes opened weakly. "And here it is," he whispered, looking at the rising sun over Ilarion through the shuttle window. She smiled, holding his hand. "We made it," he nodded faintly. "You did. You saved them." "You saved me," she replied. For a long time they sat in silence as the light filled the cabin. The war was not over, but for the first time it was no longer hopeless. Months later, the rebuilt council gathered again, this time on Ilarion. The survivors of many races attended, humans, Zathari, and others who had once been divided. When Lyra entered the hall, the crowd fell silent. She walked to the center, wearing a new white uniform. Aaron stood beside her, walking with a slight limp, his face calm. The new high speaker said, "We owe our peace to these two, the soldier who refused to abandon his allies, and the princess who chose to fight beside him." The hall filled with applause, but Lyra only looked at Aaron and said quietly, "We didn't win with power. We won because we chose trust," he smiled. "That's the hardest thing in the galaxy." After the ceremony, they stood outside on the hill overlooking the new city. The air was clean and the sky was full of ships rebuilding instead of destroying. Lyra said, "Do you ever miss the old battles?" Aaron shook his head. "No, I miss the reason we fought." "And what was that?" she asked. He looked at her gently. "To prove that even when the universe turns against us, humans don't give up, and neither do you." She smiled, her silver eyes shining in the sunlight. "Then we'll build something better together." He reached out his hand, and she took it. Above them, the stars began to appear again, distant but peaceful. The war was over, but their story was only beginning. A story of two souls from different worlds who defied the odds, who fought not for power but for belief, for unity, and for the simple truth that even among endless stars, humanity still chooses compassion. And so, in the quiet that followed the greatest storm, the galaxy began to heal. The name of Captain Aaron Vale and Princess Lyra became a legend, a reminder that even when every option is gone, there is always one last choice left: to stand for what is right.